Hey there everyone, this is Miss Amy. I was going to talk to you for just a couple of minutes about our STEAM project for the month of April. Our STEAM project, as you can tell, if you've scanned the QR code and you're watching the video and you have your bag, which this is, even if you didn't get a bag and you're just watching the video, this is an experiment that you could do with some things at home as well. It would be really easy. But if you've got your bag, then you'll notice inside your bag that you have items for an experiment. And the name of our experiment for this month is How Strong is Spaghetti? Okay, so inside of your bag you should have a styrofoam cup, a piece of yarn in the bag. You'll also have another plastic bag that has a few dry spaghetti noodles in it. I think I put like maybe 8 or 9 in each bag, right around there. And then you'll also have a bag of jelly beans. So what you're going to do just to get you started is, best thing to do is go ahead and get you a big stack of books or paper, magazines. You can use any of those things. But you want to get enough to where you can make 2 towers with the books or the papers or the coloring books, whatever you want to use. Make 2 towers, probably 6 to 7 inches away from each other. Okay, so a little bit less than the length of your spaghetti noodle, right? And make them across, just right beside each other, and try to make them about the same height too. If they're not quite exactly the same height, it's not a big deal, but try to get them as much of the same height as you possibly can. And like I said, 6-7 inches apart from one another. So once you have your tower built, then you can take one of your spaghetti noodles, and you want to just start with one because that's what the experiment's all about, and then later you can play with it some more. But just take one of your spaghetti noodles and place it on, like, kind of between, on top of your 2 towers, but it's going to go across that little chasm there to where it's forming a bridge. Basically, it's like a spaghetti noodle bridge. Okay, and so once you've done that, just place one piece of spaghetti there, and then you want to take your foam cup, and you'll notice that your foam cup that I put in your bag has holes, 2 holes, one on each side, punched in it already. Okay, so if you have a cup at home, even if you don't have a bag, just grab you a cup, like a plastic cup, paper cup, foam cup if you have any, and just poke a hole on either side. And then you take your piece of yarn, or if you just have any yarn or string at home, and what I did is I just poked it through one hole, fed it through the other one, and then tied it in the middle. Okay, so that's kind of what it's going to look like. There's your holes, there's your yarn, just like that. And then what you're going to do is you'll have to lift up one end of your spaghetti noodle and just slip it through. So pretend my finger's the spaghetti there, and it's just going to hang. Now, that's another thing about your towers. You want to make sure that when you're building your towers, your 2 towers that the spaghetti is going to crow across, you want to make sure that they're about the same height, right? We talked about that. You want to make sure that they're not so far apart that you can't put your spaghetti on top and let it go across. And then you want to also make sure that your the height of your towers are high enough to where when you hang it, it hangs off the ground or off the desk or the counter or the floor, whatever, wherever it is that you're working on this experiment. You know what I mean? So you want to make sure that it's hanging off, and at least you have like an inch or 2 there where it's just hanging in midair. Okay, so it's just going to hang right there in the middle. Make sure you got some space underneath, and then what you've got is you've got your bridge, and then you have your cup here hanging, and this is where the jelly beans come in. So you can just start with one jelly bean and drop it in, just one, okay? And then drop another one in. and then drop another one in. Drop one in at a time, and as you drop it in, watch the spaghetti noodle. How does it react? How does it respond? Does it just stay still? Does it move a little bit? Is it, the more jelly beans you put in, is it starting to bow just a little bit in the middle where that weight is pulling it down? So make sure that you're watching your spaghetti noodle as you add each jelly bean, okay? So then once you have started adding your jelly beans in one at a time, then I want you to pay attention to how many jelly beans it takes that you're adding to your cup before that spaghetti noodle finally just breaks. Because it will eventually. And I think you probably have enough jelly beans in there to where you can be able to break at least one piece of spaghetti. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about why this happens. What makes the pasta bridge so strong? Your spaghetti noodles are under certain forces when they're holding that weight. You've got that one spaghetti noodle, right, with a cup hanging from it, and you're adding weight and adding weight and adding weight with the jelly beans. Even though they don't weigh a whole lot, collectively, the more you put in there, the heavier they're getting and the more pressure that it's putting on that spaghetti noodle, right? So the two forces are called compression and tension. Compression means, to compress something means to flatten it by applying pressure, to squeeze it or to press it, and it causes a reduction in volume, right? So if you press something and you're compressing it, then the volume of it, the size of it's actually going down, but it's increasing the pressure of the object as well that you're pressing down on. The other force is tension, and tension is the state of being stretched tight. As a verb, tension happens when you apply force to something, which tends to stretch it out more. So those two forces work together to make something like a bridge, like you just built, work. So if you look at the way a bridge works that you drive over or walk over, right? When the car drives over the bridge, their weight pushes down on the surface of the bridge, and that causes the bridge to bend just ever so slightly, not even enough to really feel it. It just causes it to bend down just ever so slightly. This puts the forces of tension and compression on the materials of the bridge. When engineers make bridges, they have to make sure that they're strong enough and they have the abutments and everything built onto them so that they're strong enough to handle the forces of compression and tension. And you can read more about bridges too if that's something that's interesting to you. But that's essentially what you're making here, is a bridge. So I'm interested in knowing how many jelly beans it took to break one piece, just one dry spaghetti noodle. If you want to play with it some more after you've broken your one piece, I've given you enough spaghetti noodles to where you can bundle some together. So you could take 3, 2, maybe even 5, tape them together on the ends, or even, probably on the ends. I started to say in the middle, but it would be better to do it on the ends. Put them on your stacks of books, just like you did the one. Put your cup in there, and then add jelly beans and see how many does it take to break, I don't know, say a strand of 3 spaghetti noodles. You can also use other items too. You don't have to necessarily use the jelly beans. If you put a bunch of jelly beans in there and you find, hey, that's not doing anything to 3 strands of spaghetti, you can always take the jelly beans out and you can use things from your yard like sticks or mulch or gravel, or if you have a big container of marbles, they're a lot heavier, so you may find that it takes less of them, and you can kind of keep track of that with that experiment too. I hope you guys enjoy this.